so lonely, broken angel. I'm so lonely.
Hello, welcome to the programme. A meeting of the UN Security Council has again highlighted sharp differences between members over recent anti-government protests in Iran. It was called by the US Ambassador Nikki Haley after a week in which the Trump administration expressed strong support for the protesters. The meeting went ahead despite objections from Russia and some other council members. Our State Department correspondent Barbara Platt-Usher has more.
Nikki Haley warned Iran that the world was watching its response to the anti-government protests. She used the platform of the UN to amplify the message of President Trump, who's been tweeting support for the Iranian demonstrators.
The Iranian people will determine their own destiny. And let there be no doubt whatsoever, the United States stands unapologetically with those in Iran who seek freedom for themselves, prosperity for their families, and dignity for their nation. We will not be quiet. No dishonest attempt to call the protesters puppets of foreign powers will change that. The Iranian people know the truth, and we know the truth.
This unusually robust stance on human rights by the Trump administration coincides with a policy to curb what it sees as Iran's malign influence in the Middle East. The Iranian ambassador called the meeting a farce and repeated charges that the protests were directed from abroad, which Ms. Haley denied.
There is a long history of U.S. bullying at the UN, but this is a preposterous example. The purely internal affairs of a nation, in this case protests that the Iranian government has addressed with the utmost respect for the rights of the protesters and with every attempt to deal with peacefully, despite violent infiltrators and direct encouragement by foreign forces, including by the President of the United States.
Other council members urged Tehran to allow free and peaceful demonstrations, but some suggested this was an internal matter, not an international threat. And the Russian ambassador accused the U.S. of playing politics.
Mr. President, the real reason for convening today's meeting is not an attempt to protect human rights or promote the interests of the Iranian people, but rather as a veiled attempt to use the current moment to continue to undermine the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action.
That's the agreement which restricts Iran's nuclear program, which Mr. Trump says is deeply flawed. He has to decide next week whether to continue waiving sanctions suspended under the deal. Barbara Platt-Usher, BBC News, Washington.
I'm so lonely, broken.